Yeah, I'm ready to rock. You guys ready? Okay. And begin.
In ceremony, this tall Caucasian man comes to me, and he has this big horned owl on his forehead, right here on his third eye. And the beak comes down right through his nose here, and the horns are just really big. And he comes to me and he tells me that he's my grandfather. And my grandmother is actually right behind him. And she kind of peeks out at me. She's a little bit shyer than he is. And I tell him, how do I help my father? And he says, the only way to help him is by healing yourself. So as I take these teachings and integrate it into my life, I learned that there's a lot of spiritual ancestral power from my father's side that I am reconnecting with, that I'm resurrecting this branch of my tree.
Welcome to Season 4, Episode 8 of Ouroboros Story Hour, True Tales of Healing in Altered States. I'm your host and producer, Bob Cohen. I'm a dad, writer, and teacher. Ouroboros Story Hour began as a Boston-based underground psychedelic story session for the local medicine community back in 2017. In our fourth season, the project has evolved into an international multimedia story platform that focuses on personal narrative and lived experiences as means to explore how we live in relationship with each other, our conscious and subconscious minds, and the ineffable. Our mission is to promote connectedness, deep healing, and radical acceptance of ourselves and others by sharing and witnessing people's stories. Ouroboros Story Hour is for educational purposes. We do not advocate the use of illegal substances, nor do we provide opportunities for people to obtain them. We're committed to delivering Ouroboros Story Hour content free of charge, but we need your support to sustain the effort. So if you can, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, become a patron at patreon.com/storyhour. Donate $1 to $10 in lieu of a ticket to Venmo at Bob J. Cohen or to PayPal, paypal.me/Bob J. Cohen, or you can sponsor an episode. If you're joining us on the live stream, please say hi in the comment section and let us know where you're from, and of course, comments are welcome. Last, if tonight's speakers inspire you to share your own story, we interview prospective storytellers on a rolling basis. Contact me on Facebook and Instagram at Ouroboros Story Hour, all jammed together, or by email at Ouroboros Story Hour, all one word, at gmail.com. Tonight's featured storytellers are Margot Mundell from South Africa, Oriya, calling in from Israel, Tegler from Florida, and Anila from Oahu, Hawaii. First up for tonight, please welcome Margot Moira Mundell. She's calling in from South Africa. Margot is a plant medicine enthusiast, martial artist, writer, musician, and adventurer. She aspires to be the change she hopes to manifest with her plant work. And I really love this. She writes, tonight Margot invites us all to jump into the rabbit hole with her while she travels on her hero's journey to learn how to unbecome, so that she can learn to live with confidence, integrity, and to love unconditionally.
A very, very early morning blessing to you all, and it's an absolute honor and pleasure to be online. I'm not a fan. I'm still getting used to this online deal and how this all works. It makes me very uncomfortable. I've never liked being the center of attention. I'm usually the one hiding in the corner, watching everything, scoping the situation out. And through my whole journey, I've learned so much about speaking and sharing how I feel. I've always been a very expressive human being. And I think that's probably what saved me in my childhood. I came from a very, very good upbringing, but a very hard father. And through that, I experienced a disconnect. And it made it very difficult for me as a little girl. I was always very different. I never quite fit in. I never got along with anyone in school. I was just the odd one out. I was this airy, fairy, wild child that couldn't be controlled from the age of 3. And it just didn't quite fit in with the city that I was growing up in. I grew up in the belly of the beast in Joburg, South Africa, in the richest square mile. And I came from a family that worked really hard for what they had. We had a beautiful home, but it was difficult because I lived amongst wealth, extreme wealth. And I was just this little gypsy child that just wanted to climb trees and be outside. And as I started growing up, I started experiencing bullying, and the degrees of bullying that I experienced, I decided that martial arts was my go-to, because one day I was going to fuck these bullies up. And that's how I started my martial arts journey. And through that, that taught me so much confidence and brought me into my skin, taught me to defend myself, to stand up for myself. And I think as a woman these days, especially in this day and age, it is one of the hardest things to do, and is what has inspired me to help women stand up for themselves, to be the voice, to speak when others are too scared to speak, to say the things that make us uncomfortable, to talk about things that we ordinarily don't want to talk about, the real nitty-gritty stuff. And through this childhood, I grew into my weirdness, and my martial arts really helped me climb out of myself. I then had 3 boys, which I absolutely adore, but I started very young. And through that journey of motherhood and being a single mom and the hardships and what it was all about, I finally found myself working 7 days a week, nonstop. I was a raw vegan. I did yoga in between 7 days a week, and I was a full-blown mom. Finally, I reached a stage where I realized that I had never had a moment in my life alone. I didn't know who I was, and that terrified me. I had been shaped in a way where I just lived up to expectation, which was an impossible reach, because the expectations that were presented, especially by my father, were just unreachable. And I slowly just started deteriorating mentally. I had been through so many different experiences, pumped full of medications by psychiatrists, to points where I completely lost my mind. And I just started to eat myself alive. I couldn't accept who I was because my own dad couldn't accept me. And it made it one of the hardest experiences. And I've pretty much done shadow work my whole life. And through this whole experience, I finally decided if I didn't get out of this city life or do something to change this way of being, this machine that I'd become, this well-oiled machine. I mean, I was so well-oiled, I didn't touch coffee. I was just so well-behaved. And I'd become this machine. And finally, one day, I phoned a friend and I said to her, "You've done ayahuasca. Where did you do this ayahuasca? Tell me." And she said to me, "No, find this gentleman, Nathan." And I looked him up on Facebook and realized he was my Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach 13 years prior. And I was so excited because I trusted him so much, and he was so much to live up to. So I decided that was it. I'm going to climb into ayahuasca and face me, whatever that may look like in my full-blown egotistic nature. I walked into my first ceremony. I drank in 3 times. It did not do a single thing to me. Not a single thing. I sat there looking at these strange people, all these hippies. And I mean, I come from a city, right? So to see these really wild hippies running around on plant medicine, and the one person screaming, the other one's crying, the other one's vomiting, and I just did not want to vomit, and I so did not want to shit myself. I think it's a fear whenever you're walking into plant medicine. That's probably like the first thing you think about. okay, I don't want to purge both ends, and I so don't want to strip naked. These are the confronted fears that you sit with, and you're like, oh, I don't want to, am I going to lose control? I'm a control freak. So for me, I managed to control my first Aya journey completely. Walked out of there with a bigger ego than I walked in, thinking Aya's got nothing on me. I won against Aya, and decided to do it again. This journey was slightly different. And it's the only journey where I've actually experienced an enlightened state of light. I drank in twice. They serve in increments, which is quite nice. So you can sort of control your own dosage. And I lay on my back and I just started experiencing these, almost like a static electricity running from my toes. And she started communicating with me. And I mean, it's my second journey. So I'm like, who's talking to? Why? What? I don't know. Like you're not sure who's talking. And even though you know it's you, but is it you? She started communicating with me as she scanned my body, discussing every bit as she moved up. And as she started reaching my root chakra, my solar plexus, my heart, she just was not happy. And she's like, no, oh, no, there's work to do. All the way up to my head. She was just like, okay. And suddenly she said to me, get up and have another cup. So I sat there for a while. I looked around. How bad could it be? You know, this is beautiful. I reached this moment in this enlightenment where I could hear the universal song. You know, this absolute perfection, the dog barking, the woman crying, the guy vomiting, the car hooting. It was all in unison, in absolute perfection, this universal song. How bad could it be? So I got up and I had another cup. And I'll never forget it. I sat in front of my shaman and he looked at me, he handed me the cup and he said to me, this is a very important journey for you. And then I knew I was in trouble. I was quite reluctant to take the cup. So I took the cup, went and sat down, and I dropped into the pit of hell. All I remember is lying over a bucket with my shaman hovered over me, talking me through hell, saying to me, you are in hell. This is what you came to do. Get it done. And I remember purging this black tar. Black tar. It was the most terrifying experience. And I didn't know where I was. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I went through pits of rage, but such extreme rage, I sounded almost demonic. Well, I did sound demonic. This is a famous thing that I do in plant medicine, and one of the biggest reasons why I avoid big groups. And I just started raging and cackling and raging and screaming to the shadows, get out, get out. I screamed so loud for about a minute long. I must have screamed the roofs off of every house in that neighborhood. Now note, I'm in the middle of a city doing ayahuasca, right? And I finally started dipping into a different space, and I just collapsed and burst out into tears. And I remember my shaman saying to me, oh my love, you haven't cried in such a long time. I've come from so many different types of abuse. I've been subjected to consensual rape. I have experienced so many of these traumatic moments. I was abused for 10 years by the father of my first child. When I sat in this ayahuasca journey crying, I cried for all the moments I was pushed aside, that my tears weren't acknowledged, that my pain was not seen. And I just lay there in absolute grief. And I just finally just let go, and I just sobbed and sobbed. And I remember that journey, I wore mascara. Note, don't wear mascara when you do ayahuasca. Such a city girl. And I was so embarrassed about that because all I wear is mascara, I don't wear makeup. But I wanted to feel pretty. And I've never regretted something more in my life while I'm screeching over the edges of my bucket, staring out with this black stuff pouring down my face. It's like a dark shadow warrior with her war paint. And I remember thinking, God, why did you put on mascara this time? The first time you didn't put on mascara. Why did you do it this time? And after that entire experience, you just don't bloody give a shit anymore. You're like, mascara, I don't care if it's black, if it's blue. I'm dying, I'm vomiting tar. Like, who cares? And you come face to face with your own ego, and finally I sat up completely shocked and sort of just so happy to know that I'm still alive. And I remember picking up a bottle of water and pouring it on my hands, and I'd never in my life felt an element like I felt it that night. That water was so cleansing, washed my face, and I just sat there, and I was just so amazed by the healing effects of an element that we do not respect. And I sat in such gratitude and so held and so loved for the first time in my life, and seen, even through my rage and my tears and my pain and my mayhem, I was safe. And for the first time, I was safe in my life. That is one of many journeys that I have had. I've been working with medicine now for 6 years. We have a vision quest this weekend where I'm sort of humming and eyeing as to whether I'm going to climb in. I haven't climbed into ayahuasca in about 1.5 years. My last journey was so intense that I thought I was going to disintegrate completely. I actually had to have my shaman come and hold me as tight as he could because I faced death. I've died so many times in the medicine. I'm like doomed to die. And everyone has these beautiful, like, angelic ceremonies, and there's Margot in the depths of hell, puking tar and running through black forest, cackling like a demonic entity. And it's so funny because people look at me and they're like, oh, cute. Look, she's so sweet. Wait until you see me in the medicine. It's a complete different picture. And it's been the most inspiring journey. I decided to leave Joburg after that. I moved to a village in Cape Town. I'm right on the ocean. I surf. I never thought I'd surf. My worst fear was sharks. I'm surfing. I changed my whole career. I went into plant medicine fully. I got back into martial arts again. And I decided that I wasn't as stupid as I always was told. And I decided philosophy was my game. And writing I was going to do. And suddenly I wanted to sing. All the things I never thought I'd be. Where finally I realized that there is no way you can bring an idea to this journey and think that is what it's gonna look like. There's just no way. I mean, I am sitting now neck deep in all types of philosophy. And my main aim is to embody this change that I so wish to see. I mean, what does it take to embody this, right? And when are we going to get it? There's this spiritual correctness that's going on in this world where everyone's so zen. No, fuck that. This is not a zen process. This is hard shit. The journey into self is infinite and it's dark and it's scary, and you've got to face every insecurity on the table. You've got to sit down with your ego. I mean, every day I'm having conversations with my ego, and this unfolding, this constant unbecoming of everything I was taught to be. So finally I realized that I know nothing, proudly so. And the more I grow, the less I know. And what a beautiful experience, because it brought the mystery back into my life. It brought the magic back in. Anyone that doesn't believe that there's magic, wow, that's a sad place to be, because once upon a time I forgot that there was. And I know that place well. And I'm here to remind us of who we are. I'm relentless, so much so that I've eaten myself alive most of my life, and I continue to do so. There's still a constant struggle. That inner critique drives me, but can also completely destroy me in a single moment. I look at this world and I see so much beauty. Please don't let me come across as nihilistic or negative. I see a lot of pain. I see it in people's eyes every day. I had one of my best friends here today, who was one of the most powerful medicine men I've ever encountered. And he had no food. Where is our community? What are we doing? And when are we going to start doing the work that is so needed in this world? I really want to see things get better. And wow, it's gotten dark through this lockdown and everything that we've experienced. And there's only a few of us that are willing to do this and to really show up. And the only way we can is to climb inside and sort our shit out, clean up the mess that we've made. We've all had a hand to play. It's our responsibility. It's my responsibility. And for the first time in my life, I have a flame that cannot be put out. I am determined on this journey of self-exploration. I don't know how far I go. I don't know who I become. And that is exciting and nerve-wracking. But I'm ready to embrace the unknown in all her beauty and finally fall into that, just into the trust of Gaia again and this universal experience. Whether it be illusion or not, I'm still consciously here, perceiving something. So while I'm here, I'm going to make the most of it. And I've been lazy my whole life. I'm 38 years old now, and only now do I really realize that I'm running out of time, whatever that may mean. I mean, I'm yet a drop in the ocean of time. But here I am, talking to a group of strangers, taking the courage to stand up and say, this is me. I suffer with severe depression. I suffer with anxiety, severe anxiety. It disappeared for a long time. It's back full force. I'm insecure. I get uncomfortable sometimes around beautiful women. Around really intelligent people. And finally, I've reached a stage where I can meet at this table. I'm ready. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud to say that I'm ready. And I've come a long way. And I've fought out of the depths of hell to be here today, talking to you. And it is an honor, my brothers and sisters, an absolute honor. Let's be the change we so wish to see. For I am free. I am me.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. When you, as you were coming to the end, I wanted to shout out, "Welcome to the party, motherfucker!" It's just welcome, and thank you so much for showing up. Um, you're beautiful. You're smart. Nobody's got anything on you. Don't let people don't let people make you feel otherwise. So I had a couple of things that came up for me. So one, and this is just because you know because I ain't getting any younger. You were talking about like sort of coming into this at 38, feeling like that you lost a lot of time and that you were looking forward to. You're glad you sort of found it now. It's never too late. I mean, I didn't start with medicine until 5 years ago, and the things that have changed for me in that 5 years have been extraordinary. And it's sort of been like this, like I look at aging now a whole different thing. I told my friend Dara last time I talked to her, I said, I'm younger. I've gotten younger since I started with medicine. Um, the other one that really resonated for me was bliss versus pain in ceremonial space. I don't know about anybody else that's on the call or anyone else that's listening, but I don't know a whole lot of people who, as they're going through their process, their medicine process, that are like not in some sort of like really severe distress at some point or another. I'm curious, like, do you know people who've like kind of gone through a ceremony and said, yeah, it was just all light, love and light, and bubbles and champagne? I mean, do you know people that for whom that's been the case?
I do. I've met a few. There is a few in our group. And it doesn't
Really?
matter. It doesn't, I don't know. I don't know what. But yeah, like it's so fascinating because I mean, I've only dived into death and hell. And then there's these few in the group that are so beautiful. And I was just so loved and held. I'm like, okay, lovely.
I would laugh at somebody that said that to me, not to be unkind, but I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Same like I know people who like see pretty colors. They see they see their ancestors. I try to communicate with my ancestors in one ceremony, and they tell me, "Fuck off, do your own work, and then we'll talk to you." They're like, because you want to blame everything on us. They said, straighten yourself out, and then you can hang with us, right? It was just crazy. Oh, this is you talked about how you raged. Um, how was that for you? Did you let yourself rage before that? And what's been your relationship with rage since?
I have been very expressive with rage my whole life because I came from a family that fought a lot. So I experienced fighting, and it was almost like being stuck in a pack of wolves that was never quite on your side. So I learned to defend myself with rage my whole life, but to a point where I embodied toxic masculinity in my own form. I just thought the masculine was just the place to be. It was stronger. My father was stronger. My mom was weaker. And I was very expressive. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons why I held on to my sanity like I did, because I did express rage quite strongly, to the point where when I experienced it in my journey, I think with that moment of rage and experiencing and just letting loose, I mean, on the second journey, I'd already just, and I think I shocked everyone in that moment because I was very much judged as a little Morningside. Came from a wealthy area, very pretty, a little girl, and when I came out of there, so many people walked up to me and they were like, wow, it was like you carried the entire journey. I'm so sorry for judging you. And I was sort of just like, okay, well, I didn't know that raging or expressing rage was okay, because I was always ridiculed and condemned for rage. But nonetheless, I was a walking rebel from day one. So whatever I was told, I would do the complete opposite. So don't rage. Okay, I'm going to rage it. There's some more. I'm going to put some extra rage on there. So it's been a journey stepping out of that rage and wanting to defend. the defense, the constant defense. I've been in a state of defense my whole life. So it's been such a journey stepping out of that defense, and I get triggered into it all the time, where I'm surrounded by such powerful people and so many medicine people, and these people are profound, and I mean, nearly a reflection of oneself, right? But it's taken me a long time to realize what it takes to take the ownership and to sit at that table and for someone to tell you, well, Marx, you know, that you can handle that differently. You don't have to defend. And it's only when you start identifying with these things and really identifying with the unconscious layers of all of these things that you've held and built up in your lifetime, do you start to actually realize that that's the first step to working on it. So yes, how did that rage make me feel? Free. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have on rage.
Thank you. I guess a couple last things. So when we talked, you were telling me about a group that you belong to. You gave me a website, it was Wake. So that relates to the work that you're doing in South Africa. So if you want to share a little bit about what you're up to with that project and how people could get in touch with you. When we make the final cut for edits, I'll make sure that that stuff gets in, because this is sort of all about connecting and community as much as everything else. So if you want to tell folks a little bit of what you're up to, that'd be cool.
Perfect. Well, I'm working on two community projects. The one is to create sustainable living here in South Africa, to climb out of the societal norms and, this, which is what we're experiencing right now, because it's not working. It's just not working. And what are we doing about it? And how are we actively stepping into creating community? What does this look like? Where is the tribe at? I mean, I'm in a place where tribes are not what we would see as a tribe in Peru. I'm coming from Western culture. So, what does community look like, and how do we make this work, and how do we make it sustainable, and how do we make it work in South Africa? I mean, this is a corrupt place, right? So Wake is a support group and also a medicine group. It works on the 4 directions. It is every type of support that you can imagine, through addictions, through mental illness, through supporting whatever you are passionate about. We put it all online for you. We support you. We bring you into a safe community where we allow you to just break, to just allow yourself to break and be held. Because I think that is probably the biggest thing lacking in society today is safety. Where is the safe place?
So that's beautiful. So that can be found at wakecircle.com. So it's WAKE circle.com. Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. What a courageous act. Yeah, people don't understand, I think, sometimes that just how courageous the folks are who come on and share their stories, because it's for everyone. It's always from the heart. And it's from a place of vulnerability. So I'm known in physical spaces for giving big consensual hugs. So if you will consent, I offer you a big hug and gratitude for sharing tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 8 of Ouroboros Story Hour, True Tales of Healing in Altered States. I'm your host, Bob Cohen. With us tonight are Margot Mundell from South Africa, from whom we just heard. Coming up next will be Oriya from Israel, Drew Tegler, and Anela Bird from Oahu, Hawaii. If you are joining us on the live stream, please say hi in the comments section and let us know where you're from. And of course, comments are welcome. We are committed to delivering Ouroboros Story Hour content free of charge, but we need your financial support to sustain the project. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, become a patron at patreon.com/storyhour, donate from $1 to $10 in lieu of a ticket to Venmo at Bob J. Cohen, or PayPal, paypal.me/Bob J. Cohen, or sponsor an episode. If tonight's speakers inspired you to share your own story, we interview prospective speakers on a rolling basis. Contact me on Facebook and Instagram at Story Hour, all one word, or by email at Ouroboros Story Hour, all one word, at gmail.com. Up next is Oriya. He is joining us from Israel. Oriya serves as, I'm going to reread it. It was a little breathy. Up next is Oriya. He is joining us from Israel. Oriya serves as a life guide to entrepreneurs wanting to share their stories in a way that inspires and builds community. He developed a life story purpose framework that is a hybrid of Hollywood screenwriting and shamanism to offer his private clients a way to decide their remembering journey and to share their healing. That sounds really interesting, actually. Obviously, I love stories, right? So Oriya plans to share a story about being on the verge of self-destruction. He was a lonely nerd who embarked on a journey to become an urban shaman by utilizing mind-altering substances to build an underground community. But when his childhood traumas resurfaced and threatened his freedom, the reluctant shaman had to face his shadows and to learn the ultimate truth before his biggest fears became a reality. So welcome, Oriya. Thank you very much for appearing on Story Hour. We had a couple of really great conversations, which I enjoyed very much. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. It's yours. Thank you.
Cool. Well, this is actually the first time I'm going to share this story or my story. It's taken me a couple of years to integrate it. I've spent the past 4 years really on my own, not doing much. I've moved back to Israel, where this is my home, after spending 23 years in the US. So I'm really excited about this. I don't know if I'm excited, but I'm nervously excited about having the opportunity to share this story, which is really a universal story. Like you mentioned, I was studying Hollywood screenwriting right before I got into shamanism. And I was more interested in, really at the time, I was 29, I was more interested in mapping out story beats to my own life story. And what I realized at 29 is that I have no third act. I have no life lesson. I'm stuck in a loop. So, when I kind of let go of the storytelling career and decided to plunge into shamanism, I really discovered what my life lesson is, or should I say, what the remembering journey is all about. And perhaps it would be more helpful if I told the story like I know it, basically in 4 different phases, which I believe everyone, consciousness itself, really goes through a remembering journey in order to remember who you are. I now remember who I am, and I genuinely, truly hope that you get to remember who you are. So a lot of this looping stops, a lot of this cycle of depression and angst and hurt and pain and alienation really, really, really thrusts into a new phase. So my story begins really at the first phase, which is the forgetting phase, because the soul comes here in a forgetful state. And that forgetful state for me, my childhood, was the perfect storm. I grew up in a house where my parents were newly religious. They became religious, Orthodox Judaism, while maintaining their heroin addiction. So, I happened to grow up in a house full of spirituality, full of Kabbalah, full of mysticism. My stepfather was a scribe who would write protection documents that the Jews put on the doors while shooting up heroin. And that, I could say that caused a little bit of confusion to my first 10 years of my life. I knew that there's a lot more to one reality. I just didn't know which one is right. All I wanted to do is run away. while at the same time, things at school weren't really the best, also the best foundation for a good story. There was sexual abuse happening from the older kids in the older classes for many years. And even when that whole escapade stopped, the sexual abuse in school, we were told in school we can't tell our parents, we can't tell the community, So the theme of my story early on became that it is not safe to tell my truth. It is not safe to just say what's going on. It becomes very helpful to notice some of the themes in your life because you see that if you don't face it head on, it will find you the other way around. So I moved to America in the search for a better life. My biological father was living there since I was a kid, like two years old. He was living outside. So at 14, I moved to America to start a new life. I get away from religion. I get away from everything. I go to regular public school. I finish high school. I muscle my way through learning English and becoming an entrepreneur. And I start a couple of businesses. And of course, everything I touches happens. But at the same time, I find myself purposeless, depressed, and battling with, guess what? My own addictions to what? Alcohol, cannabis, painkillers, cocaine. Cocaine really was more of a sex thing for me because I was extremely insecure, felt inadequate, and my sex life was really a nightmare. I would do whatever I can in order to get the girl, but once we got into the bedroom, God help me. So drugs, really anything to numb my emotions, anything to really just, make me feel less, really. All the way, I have my first midlife crisis or quarter life crisis at 25. I get diagnosed with sleep apnea. They give me a mask to tell me I have to sleep with for the rest of my life. And I get myself, or should I say, I literally get myself a job at the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles. Now, the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles, my parents told me that the guy who founded it is actually my godfather. As a 26-year-old who's looking for a job, that was a very attractive thing. I said, oh my God, I found it. I found what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go learn Kabbalah. I'm going to go back right to where I started in my childhood. And guess what? I go into the Kabbalah Center. I get myself a cool job. And again, I am super depressed. I see spirituality. I feel all the good things. Everybody's saying all the right things, but I feel like there's something missing. First of all, everything around me seemed like some soul extortion. Nothing seemed really real, except the foundations, the principles were real. But as far as the teachers and the community, everything I found was, in my experience, I don't know what the word is, so not deep, just very, very, very surfacey. I struggle with my relationships. I still have zero sex in any of my relationships that I enjoy, obviously. I really hate coming to work. Once again, I am in Los Angeles, supposedly, the place where I can do whatever I want. And I feel worse than I ever have. And I'm literally on my knees. Okay, so here's my, forgetting stage, right? I am on my knees, and I remember myself, I'm 29, I'm at the beach, I'm on the knees, and I say, I've always been praying to God, always, ever since I was a kid, regardless of anything that happened, whatever my belief system were, I had a really good conversation with God. I believed I could pray and my prayers would get answered. At this point, I'm praying and I go, God, you got to help me out. Like, this is the end. I don't know what to do now. I mean, I'm 29. I've tried it all. I am, lost, depressed, addicted. sexless. I'm basically lying and maintaining 1,000,001 versions of myself, and there's no way out. So, it didn't take long, of course, before somebody tells me, hey, somebody I was doing work with, because I was hiding behind a computer, that lonely nerd. I was making a living through developing websites and developing just web applications. Anything but, talking to people. As long as I can hide behind the screen, I was happy. Somebody who I did work with actually said to me, hey, listen, I got something better than money for you. I said, oh yeah, what is that? He says, I want to take you to a shamanic ceremony. All right, let's do it. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, like I mentioned, I've dabbled with recreational drugs, but I had no idea what he was talking about. So of course I get a ride one Saturday morning. They take me into a room. This guy comes in with a big bag and he empties out the bag. And I was expecting, I have no idea actually what I was expecting, but I did not expect about 100 different vitamin shop bottles, chocolates, powders, all kinds of pills. And he says, listen, guys, I'm a reverse missionary. I'm going to take you back into the jungle. I'm here to destroy civilization. All right, sounds good. He says, I'm going to teach you how to tell better stories. So the beginning of my act 2 begins. I take a pill. Apparently, it's some kind of MDMA, because we had 100 different types of heart medicine. I take it and I get a glimpse. I go, holy shit, I've been cheated my whole life. That's literally how I felt. This feeling that I feel, this love, this immense love, this is who I am. This is my gift. This is my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to do. Oh my God. No wonder I'm struggling. No wonder I'm suffering. So I said, I'm going to be truthful. This is it. Like, I'm in my heart. I'm going to be truthful. I'm going to go do it. So I go out and I tell my job to go. I tell my boss the truth, and he gives me a raise. I break up with my girlfriend, and I start like walking around. I remember Venice and opening up my heart, and bam, I even meet the girl which I'm now married to, and I have 2 kids with. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this for a living. This is what I got to do. That's the only thing I can do now. What else am I going to do? So I go to the teacher shaman and I tell him, hey, I want to do this for a living. He tells me to go fuck off, basically. But within a year, I start running groups. He does a training. He puts together training groups. And within a year after my first ceremony, here I am starting to, I remember there was 18 people all coming in there. I'm with the same vitamin shop pills. I'm giving out pills. Supposed to be, this is it, right? Like happy ending. Well, far from it. Because first of all, I didn't really, I just started doing it for a living. So my act 2, which is basically the journey, which the soul goes on, which is basically trying to fix your problems the wrong way, which is the beginning of every good story. I go on, and I remember when I was doing it, this is something that's important. Like the first time I took medicine, I felt like, okay, this is my home, this is my heart. When I decided to do it for a living, I kept journeying, I kept going to groups, and I heard very loud, you cannot hide behind this. You will get into deep trouble. You, Oriya, specifically cannot hide behind the medicine. You can do it if you want to, you can even serve it, but do not make it your only tool, especially due to the childhood that I come from. I said to God, oh, no problem, no problem. 2 years, just give me 2 years, and I'll do it on, I'll get clean. I'll do it on my own. 2 years pass. It's too easy. Every weekend, tons of people come. Every weekend, new groups. I mean, I go from 6 people to about 700 people within 2 years. Groups all around me. Now, here's the deal. I know my promise. I know that I'm struggling here. I know that I don't want this to be the only thing that I'm doing. So what do I do to cope? I take the same medicine that I give. Now, late afterwards, people told me, oh, that's normal. All shamans do it. But in my experience, the amount of medicine that I took was not normal, okay? Like, I was basically doing groups every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, taking a whole bunch of stuff every time I'm leading, because something inside me said, you're going off the rails again. You're going off, this is a short, you're doing something that's not right. And the more, when the 2 years passed, I remember the 2 years mark when it passed, I felt even more lost than I did before. I remember trying to do journeys, trying to lead groups without taking medicine. It was almost impossible for me. I remember coming into groups, handing out the medicine. I would let my fingers like go in the boxes. I would let my intuition do it. I always knew what to give. I didn't even have to think about it. But something inside me kept telling me, you are playing with fire. You are not remembering who you are. As a matter of fact, you're building more and more and more veils. Now, I was a young guy. I was 30 something. Everybody around me is around my age, and this is the best work around. It is. There was nobody, there was very few people like me. There was all these shamans and Peruvians, and people come from all over the world, but I was a white guy from Haifa, Israel, dealing with shamanic ceremonies really in pill forms that I was getting from my teacher, from my shaman. It was seductive. It was alluring. It was so easy. But I remember every journey, I would give out the medicine. I would wait 45 minutes or so, like everybody else, and people would come to me and say, "What's going on, Oriya? We don't feel anything. What's going on?" I'm talking like 70 people every time, between 30 to 70 people, like clockwork. Okay, like clockwork. I would go into the mirror, and I'm into the bathroom, look in the mirror, take something myself, come outside, and people would be like, "Oh my God, things are so different now. What happened?" And I could tell that because of my world and their world, everything started to blend. Now, just imagine that this great substance, this great medicine that everybody's feeling so great on, I started to feel like there's something else going on. There's something else going on. All these the people, the messaging, people would always see the same things. Everything that you shared before, people would always see what they want to see. The Jews would see Jewish figures. The Christians would see Christ. Everybody would see what their psyche is telling them to see, and they would all come back either freaked out or feeling loved. One of the two. And I was like, I got to go deeper here. There's something going on here that I have to go deeper. I remember having to make a decision going, okay, I'm either going to stop now and focus on something else, or dive head first and plunge in. Ah, man, that's the third phase of the remembering journey is what I call the autocorrect, which I believe the world is in right now with the pandemic. The autocorrect phase is when you know the lie, you know what's going on in your life, you know that there's a part of you that you're afraid facing, but you're not ready to reject it. I wasn't ready to reject the lie that I'm not safe enough to tell the truth. I wasn't ready to reject the lie that I'm not good enough to just be the medicine. I needed life to do it for me. And the perfect scenario for me in my childhood was, of course, I was having marital issues. My marriage issues didn't fix themselves. Why would they? So my wife tells me she's like, you know what? You want to explore open relationships? Go right ahead, but just don't do it in the community, right? That's a fair request. Now you can't ask someone that, especially that's their whole life. So what do? I go right into the community, and I have a relationship with someone. It didn't take long before that person goes and they do an ayahuasca ceremony with a therapist couple. And just like every good movie, just like every perfect story, I get a phone call saying, "Hey, listen, there is somebody that wants to complain, wants to go to the authorities about your sexual misconduct." Now imagine, I'm 35 years old. I told you about my childhood, sexual abuse, drug abuse, spirituality abuse, where it was mispointed. Now I'm 35 years old. I'm at the height of my personal and spiritual career. I'm leading groups. I'm out there. I'm doing my thing. And at the same time, I'm beginning to experience my worst fears. I get a call being threatened to go to the authorities about sexual misconduct. I can't stop taking the same medicine in order to lead groups. I am not having success in my relationship. I have to hide completely all the time from my clients because everybody just wants to hear that it's plant medicine and it's plant inspired, and very few are willing to look at this stuff in the face and look at this stuff as what it is for real. People have a tendency to believe to make up stories and to stick to them. And I found myself the perfect career again to have 1,000,001 versions of myself. Now, what that did for me, phase 3, the autocorrect, was very powerful because when I started facing my own shadows, when I started facing my worst fear, when my worst fear as a kid was being ridiculed, my worst fear as a kid was being humiliated. So now all of a sudden, I'm in a community where people around me saying, "Oh, did you hear this? Did you hear that?" That was literally my worst nightmare as a grown man. Once again, I just stick to it. I keep running groups. I keep taking medicine. I keep doing whatever I got to do, knowing in the back of my mind there's that at some point, I don't know what the point is. I literally, I'm on my knees at that point. I remember I go on these journeys. I take ayahuasca, and the only thing with my notebook, and the only thing I get back is, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. I mean, this is like this is the most serious situation ever. What do you mean, don't take yourself too seriously? It gets to a point where this thing gets, basically there are camps. There become camps. Like there's one camp that's like all pro Oriya. Let's do this. This guy is the real deal. We'll love him no matter what. And there's this other camp that goes, it's Oriya. Didn't you hear? Like his spaces and his this, and we got to get him off the street, and it's ecstasy, and it's this, and it's that. I'm in my experience, I'm an entrepreneur, man. Just doing my best, doing whatever I can. Never claim to be better than anyone else. Just found the best. I found the highest technology I ever found in my life, and now I'm serving it as best as I can. Back of my mind, I hear you're just going to have to ride this out because it's going to cleanse you. This is going to cleanse you. I mean, a lot of you guys and people who are doing journeys, you experience this in the journey, like literally. What happened to me, because I was a student and a teacher at the same time, I experienced all of this in real life. Like that worst nightmare case scenario that you feel in an ayahuasca ceremony, I walk up to it every day. I walk up to my own fears manifested in real life. it all came to a crescendo, of course, as the end of the third act. You know, in the movie business, it's dark. All is lost. Dark night of the soul, which the world is going through right now. And I wake up to an entire Facebook thread with my name, and people are saying, "No more journeys. No more journeys. We'll go to the authorities." My wife looks at me and she says, "I don't want to lose our child." Now, what the hell is going on? What did I run from? If I ran all the way from Israel to America, recreated my childhood in reverse, using plant medicine, literally. So once again, I tell God, I raise up, okay. You make it clear. You show me what to do. You make it really nice. I want clear. I don't want signs. I want clarity. I want you to take my hand. And you know, I remember I had to. I literally told everyone and everything that I'm done. Um, I said I will take a break. Of course, they didn't really work out their way. I kept doing groups for another 6 months because people just kept coming and life just kept serving. But at some point, I jumped on an airplane and decided to start from scratch to come to Israel and to see what I can learn about my journey. And for 3 years, I literally did nothing. I mean, nothing except try to go back, talk to people in my community, see if there's anything I can do to make better. In the beginning, it was like radio silence. I realized that it was all about me. And literally, guys, for 3 years, I did nothing. But this time, I did a lot of DMT, of course, and LSD. I mean, what else are you going to do if you're going to go on a solo vision quest? And the fourth phase of the remembering journey is pretty magnificent if you can face it. Okay. The fourth phase of the remembering journey, in which I really hope that everyone has the courage to face, is remembering the truth. And while the Changa, the DMT, the LSD really took me there, while the 10 years of ayahuasca and MDMA I mean, I've done every kind of substance known to man and more. But after 3 years of silence, after all this pain, after 10 years of studying screenwriting, I looked at it and it was a friend on the phone that I've known for 15 years. He says to me, "Well, you know you're dreaming this, right?" Now, I know we read this stuff in the books, and I know we take some substances and we go in and we see the dreamlike nature of reality. But to actually come to know the truth is there is no God. We are God. There is nothing out there. Nothing ever was and ever will be. What's out there is real, but it's not separated from us. I have created the perfect journey for myself. I have created the perfect set and settings over 40 years to claim my own divinity, to claim responsibility for my power. I grew up with abuse of power and abuse of sexuality and abuse of spirituality, only to have to claim those for myself and to take full responsibility for it. There is really nothing out there, and you are dreaming all of this. And all these stories and all the healing and all the processes and all the community, it's all an act. It's a divine, beautiful act, and it's a sacred play, but it's an act. It really is. I've come to remember that I'm dreaming this, and this is a dream, and all the substance in the world, all of it, it's only meant to take you inward and to show you that you're dreaming this. And we have individually created each other, and we created a journey in which we hit the perfect checkpoints in which we confront the fears and demons that block us from believing that we are the gods of our lives. And all the depression and all the hurt and all the pain and all the doubt is designed by you, you, to claim your power and to claim your divinity. And you can take all the substances and the ceremonies in the world, know what you're going for, because most people won't tell you that, because you have to be ready for it. You might not be ready right now. Shamans are also business people. Everybody is part of the game. There is a game that's being played, and everybody is doing their role. Your role is to remember that you're dreaming this. I know I am. I know for 1,000% that everything I've created and I've generated, I have created to remember this. And it's beautiful and it's powerful. And I really wish you an elegant way of remembering. And when you do, because it will happen either this lifetime or the next, to not run away from it. Because all methods is a trap. Medicine is a trap. Yoga is a trap. Breathing, it's all a trap. It's supposed to take you there, but it's not the way. The way is remembering that you are dreaming this right now. So thank you for letting me share this story, because I have created this as much as you are creating me. Aho.
Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 8 of Ouroboros Story Hour, True Tales of Healing in Altered States. I'm your host, Bob Cohen. With us tonight are Margot Mundell from South Africa, Oriya from Israel, Drew Tegler from Florida, and Anela Bird from Oahu, Hawaii. So we just heard a rousing and spirited story from Oriya. If you are joining us via live stream, say hi in the comment section and let us know where you're from. And of course, feel free to ask questions. I'll say parenthetically, there's a great conversation going on in the comments section right now. If anybody wants to tune in and pay attention to it, that I highly recommend it. We are committed to delivering Ouroboros Story Hour content free of charge, but we need your generous financial support to sustain the project. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, become a patron at patreon.com/storyhour, donate $1 to $10 in lieu of a ticket to Venmo at Bob J. Cohen, or PayPal at paypal.me/Bob J. Cohen. If tonight's speakers inspire you to share your own story, we interview prospective speakers on a rolling basis. Contact me on Facebook and Instagram at Ouroboros Story Hour, or by email at ouroboros@gmail.com. By the way, those conversations are really fun. You're going to hear from Anela a little bit later on. We ended up chatting, I think, for almost 2 hours, and it was so much fun. I felt like I made a new friend. But when we finally had ended the call, in fact, I think for both of us, like, we both had to go to the bathroom so badly, and neither one of us wanted to stop. Finally, the bladders got the better of us, but it was just great. So please, if you want to tell the story, come join us. All right. Up next is Drew Tegler. Drew has spent over 10 summers working as a natural history tour guide in Denali National Park, Alaska, and he has visited the Peruvian rainforest numerous times to study traditional Amazonian shamanism and natural plant medicines. Currently, he is the retreat leader at Butterfly Medicine Retreats in Central Florida, and the stories from this podcast can be found in his forthcoming book, Flapjack Fables. So Drew plans to share a story about his adventure of a lifetime, which is set across 2 continents, from the heart of the Peruvian Amazon forest to the icy crown of the tallest mountain in Alaska, Denali. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for so patiently waiting to share your story. Thank you to Oriya and to Margot for telling your stories. Thank you for everybody that's on the live stream right now and actively engaged in conversation. Much gratitude for everybody and this whole process. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, first I want to say thank you for the invitation to be a part of this. Thank you, Margot and Oriya for sharing your incredible story so far. I really look forward to hearing Anela's story after this. My name is Drew, and I want to begin by saying Happy Earth Day to everyone. I know that every day is Earth Day, Earth is our home, but I remember a quote from Terence McKenna. He said that substances like mushrooms and ayahuasca are extensions of man. And in his definition, or no, I'm sorry, rather, he would say that a substance like ayahuasca is a technology, and his definition of a technology is an extension of man. And whether you consider a substance like ayahuasca to be its own discrete consciousness or a spirit or God itself, I believe that it is an extension of Mother Earth and the spirit of Gaia, which we all are. So whether it's Earth Day or not, I think that's something that we should keep in mind, that these are sacred things that come from the planet that supports all life. So while I speak, I'm just going to share a rhetorical question for you guys at the beginning. This is something I've thought about quite a bit, but are we humans learning what it's like to be like ayahuasca with the lessons that it shares with us and the messages it gives us? Or is ayahuasca learning what it's like to be more human as it meets all these different humans from all over the globe? Now that ayahuasca's roots have left the Amazon rainforest, are we learning what it's like to be more plant-like, or are the plants learning what it's like to live in human consciousness for a while? So that's just something I think about more than I need to. I'm pretty much a nomad. I'm from Central Florida, but I've spent 12 summers living in Alaska, working as a tour bus driver in Denali National Park. I've always had a very, very strong connection to nature. I can remember since I was 4 or 5 years old, just running off into the woods and disappearing for hours. My mom wouldn't know where I was. That was just something that I was comfortable doing and that I love to do, just to be in the trees and seeing the bugs and all the critters that are out there. So I learned about ayahuasca when I was 22 years old in college. I was actually in a pretty cool humanities class with a really cool professor, and I was challenged to write a paper that compared religious experience with psychedelic experience. So that was my introduction. No one told me about ayahuasca. I read that word in a book that was about the Native American church's use of peyote. And it just somewhere in there said, and in the Amazon, there's people that also make a similar potion called ayahuasca. And I didn't know what it was, but it was a word that I couldn't forget for the rest of my life. So I was about 22 years old then. And then I started doing research to deepen my understanding of what this thing is. And it wasn't until more than 7 years later that I finally took a trip to the Amazon rainforest. In the meantime, I had already started working in Alaska and had spent 6 summers up there by then. And back then, well, it was in 2011 was my first trip to the Amazon. I didn't know that there were even underground ceremonies. I thought you had to go to the source, to the jungle, to meet an authentic shaman and to, meet this plant spirit on its own turf. So that's what I did. I did 10 ceremonies in 2 weeks, which some people say is a lot. I've had about 300 ceremonies now. Almost half of them have been in the Amazon rainforest. And I remember I don't really remember my first ceremony, but I do to a degree. There were about 30 participants in the Maloka that night. And apparently I'm the only one who was silly enough to drink the full cup because I didn't know that you had a choice. When the shaman handed me the cup, he told me to share my intention with the medicine. I wasn't even sure what that meant. I came to the medicine out of curiosity. I didn't think that I had any trauma. I felt like I had a really good childhood and upbringing. There was no religion in my family. So when the shaman said, "Here, share your intention with ayahuasca," to me, the closest thing that came to mind was that I was praying, which I wasn't something I was familiar or comfortable doing. So looking back, that might have actually been the very first time that I said a prayer in my entire life, perhaps. And I was about 29 and a half years old. So it was almost exactly on my Saturn return, but I didn't know what that even was then. Astronomy and astrology, rather, is just something that evolved in my psyche and my person as the years went on. So yeah, back then I thought you had to go to Peru, so that's what I did. And as the years went by, I very slowly integrated those lessons. I mean, that first night, I drank a cup that was, I don't know, half as big as this coffee cup. It was probably 3 or 4 ounces of brew, and I drank the whole thing. I thought it tasted like spicy V8 juice with a little bit of dirt thrown in, but I didn't think it even tasted that bad. I did not purge, and I was absolutely floored all night long. I just stared at the top of the Maloka where all the beams of wood came together, and it just turned into like a black hole or a galaxy or a spider's web. And I just stared at that all night long. And I don't know how much time went by, but eventually the ceremony was over. I heard people around me talking about me. They were saying like, "How much did that guy drink?" And apparently the shaman must have said like, "He drank the whole cup." And like everybody was shocked, like, "He drank the whole cup?" Like, wow, I've never drank the whole cup. And I just could hear them talking about me, but I still had no power to move my body or anything like that. So that was my first experience, my very first ceremony. The second night was the complete opposite. Actually, I purged very early. I thought the singing and everything that was happening was stupid. I couldn't believe that I wasted so much money to travel to South America for that. And I was just, I doubted being there. So those first and second ceremonies were very opposite from each other. And I feel like almost every ceremony I've had since then has fallen somewhere in between those very first two. So I kind of use them as anchor points, even though I know that comparing anything to anything else is about worth its own weight in bullshit. I still use those two as like the anchors, because one was beautiful, one was truly ecstatic and euphoric, and the other one was, it just felt wrong to even have spent the money to go down there for that. So anyway, time went on. I went back to Alaska. I took a little bit of time off, but I wound up taking a job in 2018 as a hiking guide for a wilderness lodge. It was in Denali National Park, which is also home not only to moose and bears and caribou and mountain sheep and wolves and lots of other amazing creatures. It's also home to the tallest mountain in North America, Mount McKinley, or Denali, which is 20,000 feet tall. And I had a desire to climb it. There weren't any other tour guides or tour bus drivers in the park, or there was maybe 1 or 2, but they had retired by then. And I wanted to be like that person, the tour guide who had actually been to the mountain. And something I do want to mention is I also, like Margot, have always been very shy and timid. I hated public speaking, which it still surprises me that I even became a tour guide, because I hated talking to strangers so much that I actually dropped out of speech class in college 2 times. I just took the F because I would rather do that than have to face my fear and stand up in front of a group of people talking about something I didn't care about. But that's basically what both ayahuasca and Alaska have done for me. They've both given me a connection to nature and something that I enjoy sharing with other people. So yeah, in 2018, I was hired as a hiking guide. but I was qualified to be a tour bus driver, but they had already hired another guy to fill that job. And as soon as he started driving on the park road, if any of you have ever been to Denali National Park in Alaska, it's a very windy, narrow dirt road. And when one bus meets the other, one has to pull over so that the other bus can pass safely. And this new driver they hired, even though he had almost as many years as I've been alive of being a professional driver, he couldn't believe that there were no guardrails on the side of the road. He actually, was too afraid to keep doing it. So he quit after 2 weeks. He quit the job. And so I was promoted. His name was Max. And one of my personal mantras is thank God Max quit, because what became of that is that I got a significant hourly promotion. Like my pay rate went up several dollars per hour. And that's what afforded me a trip to the Amazon that fall. I'd already been to the Amazon a few times, but I had always wanted to do like an authentic apprenticeship, or at least some version of that. And I had known for a few years that there was this one shaman near Iquitos, Peru, who realized that his own children and grandchildren didn't really care about learning the traditional ways. They cared more about their iPhones and everything else that every other child on the planet cares the most about anymore. And so this shaman realized that he wasn't going to be able to teach his own family the way he wanted to. So he opened up his doors and his maloka to basically anyone that was willing to travel to Peru and to learn from him. So that's what I decided to do. I went and stayed with him for a few months. Every 4 weeks, he would have you open a new dieta with a different plant teacher. But the first one that he has all his students diet is a very rare tree that is called Noya Rao. And its leaves literally glow in the dark. So it's, when you go see this tree, it's almost like being in the movie Avatar. Of course, that's a Hollywood dramatization and it's very exaggerated, but this tree literally is bioluminescent. Its leaves glow at night. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But that's where I was, and that's what I had signed up for. So about 2 weeks into this dieta with Noya Rao, I had a very vivid vision in one of my ceremonies of a large black feline, a jaguar, but all black. And I had completely forgotten that as a small child, I had this recurring nightmare of a big black cat hunting me. This is the only dream that I remember having, and I had it over and over and over again. And I would always wake up screaming in the middle of the night, shouting for my mom, saying, Mom, the big black cat was trying to get me. And she would come and say, it's just your imagination. Don't worry. There's no big black cat. Nothing's trying to get you. And as the years went on, I forgot all about it. I finally stopped having that dream when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And then I just completely forgot about it for close to 30 years. But during my dieta with Noya Rao, I had this dream, a vision. Well, like Oriya would say, it's all a dream. But I was having a vision of a very familiar face. The big black cat was back to visit me. But in this particular ceremony, I recognized it for what it truly was. And I realized that it was never hunting me. It was never trying to hurt me. It was actually watching out for me. It was protecting me. So I consider the big black cat to be my OG, my original gangsta spirit animal, my original protector. And I was just very amazed that it came back to visit me again 30 years later. So the very nest day, the shaman, he starts shouting. He's like, come to the Maloka. I have something important to tell you. So all his students, there were about 10 of us there at the same time, all undertaking this apprenticeship. And he said that if we were dieting well, In our dreams and in our visions, we would see colors like blue and purple and white. We might see a white owl, which he said, that's me, I'm the white owl. And then he said, I get choked up talking about it, but he said, you might see Huisoino, or the Puma Negra, the big black cat. And I just couldn't believe what he had said, because it was only the night before. It was like he was there in my vision and he knew what I had seen, and he was trying to remind me that it was good. So he said that the big black cat is the protector spirit of the Noirau tree. I'll mention that there are less than 10 of these trees that are even known to exist, and there's only one family of these 3 brothers and their wives and children that protect these trees. So they're very rare, and the big black cat is its spirit protector. And even though I don't really know how to describe it, I feel like this tree has always been calling to me ever since I was just a little kid. And I'm just very grateful that, well, first of all, that Max quit so that I could afford a trip to the Amazon and go meet this tree and this shaman and these spirits for myself in my own dream. This was with the Shipibo shaman. I know Bob was saying at the beginning that his Brazilian lineage, they use a lot of hape and sananga eye drops. Our shaman on the very first day said, if you brought any hape with you, do not use it. The Noirau tree does not like it. It's too harsh. This is a very gentle spirit. It won't agree with you. You won't have a good dieta if you use it. So I had been using it 3 or 4 times a day at that point. I was pretty much addicted to it because of how much nicotine it has in it. So I had to quit cold turkey, but it wasn't as hard as I thought because I was very supported. Anyway, they like to do dietas. They like to have you diet all sorts of different plants, but only one at a time, usually for several weeks or even longer at a time. And when you open a dieta, you're fasting. You're not allowed to eat anything else. You're only consuming that particular drink, whether it's a tea or some other way that it's prepared. And you're drinking water, of course, because the jungle's very hot and humid, and you're having ayahuasca ceremonies every other night. And that's all you're doing for the first several days of your dieta. They also smoke a lot of pipes. They make pipes out of Noirau and Bobinsana and Chuyachaki and all these different plant spirits. So they use mapacho, jungle tobacco, a lot. So that was actually part of probably what made stopping the hape easier for me, was because it was replaced by smoking a lot of mapacho. Anyhow, while my stay in the jungle continued, one day an old woman showed up at the community, and she had these beautiful tapestries and pants and things that she had painted and sewn embroidery into with the patterns that are the signatures of the different plants that they work with down in the jungle. And there was this one tapestry that really spoke to me, and I purchased it from her. And that night we had a ceremony, and I saw myself standing on top of Mount McKinley up in Alaska, holding this tapestry, waving in the wind. So like Oriya said, what ayahuasca can do, what it usually does for a lot of people, is it shows you your potential. It shows you who you can be. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The ceremony is a starting point, but then you have the rest of your life to make the changes and the sacrifices that you need to make in order to become that highest version of yourself, to actually become your highest potential. And that's a lifetime of work. That work never ends. And so eventually I had to leave the jungle, but I did make plans. I signed up with a guiding expedition or a guiding company to climb the mountain of my dreams, Denali, the following summer. And of course, I made sure that I took the tapestry with me to make my dream become a reality. And it was a 28-day expedition that we spent climbing Denali. It took us 18 days to reach the summit and 10 to get back down. We used the historic route. We didn't cheat by flying into base camp, which is already 7,000 feet. We took one of the park buses out to the closest point where it is from the mountain, which is still 30 miles away. We trekked over 30 miles of tundra. We crossed rivers. We had to chase a grizzly bear out of our camp. Finally, on the 4th day, we got to the glacier and started actually living on the snow from that point forward. We had a very scary situation on our descent. We had scary situations already. One of the teammates fell into a crevasse and it took us more than 2 hours to get him out. Another one of the rope teams, because there were enough people on the party that we had multiple rope teams with 3 or 4 people tied together on each team. One of my rope teams in my expedition slipped. They triggered an avalanche and started falling. They fell like 100 feet before one of them, caught themselves with their ice pick and anchored the rest of the team. It took us, I couldn't even see this happening with my own eyes because of the shape of the ridgeline, but it took a while to recover them and to make sure everyone was okay. It definitely set a certain emotional tone for the remainder of the trip. But there was one point where we were alongside a very steep wall and we started hearing a very thunderous roar. And we knew instantly what it was. It was an avalanche coming straight for us. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I saw a big rock close by 20 feet away that I could hide behind. I saw a crevasse over there that I could maybe jump into. Since I'm tied to my teammates, I could jump in. I was at the end of my rope team, so maybe I would be safer swinging down there and eventually someone would come and find me and help me out. Luckily, the avalanche missed us by less than a football field, less than 100 meters, maybe 150 feet or 50 meters in front of us is the path it took. But from my perspective, I really thought my teammates were about to get blown away, literally. And it was a very humbling feeling. I can't remember any other time in my life where I felt so helpless. Even in an ayahuasca ceremony, I didn't feel as helpless as that because this was very real. This wasn't a vision. This was really happening. And luckily it missed us, but I felt like a little bug and that the boot of God was about to squish all of us. So anyhow, that's a little tangent there, but we did make it to the top. I did get to hold my tapestry and get a photo opportunity with it at the summit of Denali. And for me, what that represents is ayahuasca's journey out of the Amazon. Now that it can be found on pretty much every continent, and there's probably a ceremony happening in almost every major city on the planet this weekend. I'll be at one myself. Now that ayahuasca has left the jungle, it's our responsibility to revere it and respect it. I am from Orlando, Florida, and I don't think it's just a coincidence that after I had traveled to the Amazon a few times and, gone through, spent a lot of time and energy and resources to go to ayahuasca's home, that a church, the first that I had ever heard of, opened up here in Orlando, only about 20 minutes from my house. Of course, I had to go check it out. It wasn't anything like being in the Amazon, but I felt a duty to make sure that the medicine was being respected in this new landscape, in its new home. And that was the very clear message that I got at my second ceremony there. The first night, all I could say was thank you. And the second night, Spirit just said, give back, give back. It's time for you to give back. And so that's what I try to do. I've been very patient, I feel, with my journey. I spent 7 years simply doing research. It's been 10 years now since my first ceremony in Peru. And I have helped other church owners and facilitators lead ceremonies, but only very, very recently, less than 2 months ago, I got the calling to start having my own retreats. So that's what I'm doing now. I've only had a few so far, but they've literally been perfect. And I believe that the reason for that is because I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've been given. I'm trying to remain in the flow and in alignment with everything that ayahuasca has ever shown me. I have faith, which my shaman, my maestro, keeps reminding me to have faith in God and faith in the plants, that they will provide for us. And whenever someone contacts me and is having a rough time, I try to remind them, a lot like Margot said, that magic is real and it starts in our mind with our thoughts. It's the words we speak and it's the actions that we take. That's the real magic. And when we think, act, and speak in alignment with the potential, our highest self that ayahuasca has shown us, that's when abundance flows. And just everything that's happened in the past few months I couldn't have imagined it going any more perfect. Like, I've had to do very, very little. A 15-acre property has been presented to me with all the infrastructure that we need. It's got cabins, it's got showers and bathrooms and a kitchen, and like everything is there. And I just had to show up. That's all I had to do, was just believe in myself, believe in God, believe in the plants, and have faith, and just show up. And people are calling me almost every day. People are signing up, people are coming. And I'm being very cautious. I'm taking a lot of advice from Oriya. I'm not trying to get carried away. I'm being very patient, starting very slow. I've already decided I'm never, ever gonna have more than 15 people, maybe 20 under certain circumstances allowed in my ceremonies. I'm not gonna do this every weekend. It's gonna be maybe once a month, maybe twice at the most. But yeah, I'm gonna take all the lessons that I've learned. I've seen a lot of people disrespect the medicine. I've caught people mixing street drugs with ayahuasca, thinking that they can serve the medicine and do cocaine at the same time. I've caught people sleeping with their guests during the retreat before they go home. So I've seen a lot of unethical, immoral practice surrounding this. And my intention is just to take everything I've learned and do my best and to live in alignment with what I've seen and make my own dream become reality and live in alignment with the dream that Oriya spoke about. So yeah, just as a little closing, I know that when people come to my retreats, I might not be the person that they expect to see. So one of my first reminders for everyone is that the shaman is inside all of us. We are the healer, we are the shaman, but we've been programmed to forget that. So it's going to take some time to remember and to wake up that archetypal healer, the wounded healer inside all of us, and that is the shaman. So the shaman is already present, but he's inside of you, or she is inside of you, it, whatever you want to call it. Once you take your first sip of ayahuasca and it shows you what's possible, the ceremony never ends after that. The rest of your life is the ceremony. And your intention that you bring into ceremony means everything. And I like to keep my intentions very simple, usually just one word. I ask for love or clarity or creativity or forgiveness. And it's amazing how ayahuasca shows you 1,000 different dimensions of such a simple theme. And that's the magic. That's the magic that ayahuasca brings. So yeah, I love nature. I love Alaska. I love ayahuasca. I love just being alive. And one of my favorite mantras, one of my magical spells that I like to share with people is beauty is all I see. Beauty is all I see. So even though things don't always go exactly the way we want, your perspective creates your reality. And if you're perceiving beauty, then beauty will be returned to you in 1,000 different ways. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure being here. And just remember, the shaman is within you. You are love. You are the medicine. And it's just a matter of remembering.
Oh boy. Thank you. Let me pull this up this way. May I give you a hug? Well done. The thing that never ceases to amaze me about doing this work is how vulnerable people are willing to allow themselves to be. It's the thing I try. It's the thing I try hard to create in this space, and it's always gratifying when it happens. And so I thank you. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to season 4, episode 8 of Ouroboros Story Hour, True Tales of Healing in Altered States. I'm your host, Bob Cohen. With us tonight are Margot Mundell from South Africa, Oriya, who finally went to bed. It was 4 o'clock in the morning in Israel when he gave up the ghost. So I totally get that. So Oriya, thank you for being with us and for hanging in for most of the night. We just heard from Tegler, who's from Florida. And up next is Anela Bird from Oahu, Hawaii. If you are joining us via the live stream, say hi in the comment section and let us know where you're from. And of course, feel free to ask questions. Parenthetically, or by the way, there's been a great conversation going on in the comment section. So if any of the speakers want to join in, that's cool. And anybody else that wants to add to the conversation, please, you're most welcome. And of course, ask questions. We're happy to get them answered for you. So we're committed to delivering Ouroboros Story Hour content free of charge, but we need your financial support to help sustain the effort. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, become a patron at patreon.com/storyhour, donate between $1 and $10 in lieu of a ticket to Venmo at Bob J. Cohen, or PayPal at paypal.me/Bob J. Cohen, and sponsor an episode. Drew made an interesting point about abundance, and Ouroboros Story Hour has blessed me with every form of abundance, but the one that pays the bills. So I would really appreciate it if you guys could help out. I'm spending probably about $250 a month to keep this thing going, and it's, for the most part, it's mostly been out of my pocket. It's a labor of love. I'm happy to do it. I'm not going to stop, but boy, it would be nice to lighten the load a little bit. So thanks. So up next is Anela Bird. She joins us from Oahu, Hawaii. Anela is a native Hawaiian, German, Filipino, and Chinese woman born and raised in Kula. I hope I said that right. Maui. I know how to say Maui. I've been there. She's a mama, acupuncturist. Actually, I'm going to read that all over again so that it comes out nicely in the edited version. Sorry. So up next is Anela Bird. She joins us from Oahu, Hawaii. Anela is a native Hawaiian, German, Filipino, and Chinese-born woman born and raised in Kuala, Maui. She's a mama, acupuncturist, ceremonial facilitator, spirit integration guide, and lover of life and lover of her land. She has a deep honor and respect for all plant medicines and their generosity to assist us on our journeys. So Anela plans to talk about how she connected to her father's estranged family lineage when she met her grandfather and grandmother in medicine space. So there's a whole lot more to the story, but I wanted to leave all the surprise for Anela when she shares it. And just parenthetically, we chatted a while back, and when we first met each other, we had the most amazing conversation, and I feel like I've met a new friend. So Anela, thank you. It's all you. So give me a minute to reconfigure the video. There we go. So Anela, thank you very much for sticking around the whole night. Thank you for sharing your story, and I'm really looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you. I think it's such an honor to hear everyone's story, and being the last one really kind of brought me to a place where I can see all of the lessons from everyone's stories. And it's, again, just the beautiful structure and the divine orchestrating of who's in this group and who's sharing, and the beautiful timely lessons that I got from everyone's story. I just want to express all the gratitude to all of you, because there's something that resonated with me in every single story. Yeah, so like Bob said, I am from Maui. I live here on Oahu now, and I was born and raised on Maui. I have a little girl, she's 3 years old, and we live here. It's pretty interesting to hear everyone talk about the feelings about public speaking, and I shared with Bob, that this is something that I've been really looking into those areas of resistance in my life, and one of those was sharing my story, was really diving into myself and sharing that with other people. So when he approached me, I that little ego voice was like, no. But it was a full-hearted yes. And I just appreciate the space so much to share. And what a beautiful topic, it's got a beautiful, simple structure to it, and our gratitude for the plant medicines and what they've shown us. I would say my journey with plant medicines started, I think it was 2010, I think. And that was just exploring plant medicines, or I think it was LSD and mushrooms with my partner at the time. And, that didn't have any structure. It was like, we lived in California, I was going to college, and you can go to the beach, enjoy the nature, go with the trees and that kind of thing. And I did LSD with him, and he was really, I really admire this about him. He's very analytical, he's very structured. So he really showed me how to navigate it. And he was like, okay, the first, it's gonna take about 45 minutes for it to set in. And then we're going to, then it's going to kick in. You may experience these things. And it was really beautiful the way that he guided me in that. And I appreciate that, because it showed me the way and the language of these medicines and what they can do for us and what they can show us. So fast forward about, I guess it's now, it's 2015 that I first went down to Peru. We had been listening to some podcasts about going to Peru, going to do ayahuasca, and I really felt this is something that was needed in my mother's lineage. I have a pretty interesting childhood. My mother is bipolar. She lived with major trauma from her early childhood. So she really lived from a place of pain and fear and rage a lot of her life. And she still lives that way. So as a way to understand her more, I felt it was really important for me to dive within myself. So as I started to hear about ayahuasca, I thought, okay, well, similar to what Drew said, I have a tremendous respect for these medicines and the power that they hold. the power that they can unlock within us. So we were very hesitant about finding a place to go. Safety was really important to us. We really wanted to find somewhere that, you know, supported the community that they lived in and around and all of that. So it took us quite a number of years to find a place to go. And the way that me and my partner kind of balance each other out is I'm definitely more spontaneous and he's very structured and planned. So I came to him, I said, okay, well, you know, let's discuss dates and all of this stuff. And then I come to him about a month later and okay, so I booked my stuff. So are you gonna book your flight? Let's do this, you know? And so it really kind of propelled us to take that journey together. And that was the first time we went down, and we experienced the Shipibo tradition. We did in that first retreat that I went on, we did 5 ceremonies. And, you know, I had this intention of experiencing love, and I wanted to keep it as general as possible. And I brought my journal with me. I thought I was going to write all of this stuff. All of this stuff was going to just come flooding out of me, you know, and really thought that that's what, you know, even though I thought I had no expectation for the medicine, I had some, you know. And I came out of those 5 days with a notebook that was, I think there's 2 pages that I only drew 2 things. And I drew, it was the top of the Maloka with the rainbow, with the beautiful rainbow colors of the Maloka. And I drew this lineage. What I learned is my lineage power animal, which is the horned owl. So those were the 2 images that I sketched out. I don't consider myself an artist. I was never encouraged to dive into that as a child. So, you know, I still have some old patterning of resisting that creative urge in that realm, but that's what I sketched. And I think it was the first ceremony was I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff and I had to jump off, and I didn't want to. So there was this feeling of kind of clinging to every little bark and root and tree, anything that I could grasp myself to. And eventually I ended up surrendering to that in that first ceremony. It was quite difficult. A lot of darkness, lots of density. And I realized that there's so much involved as I look back between the ceremonies. Between the ceremonies are these ceremonies within those spaces. And I went through this whole process of all of this anxiety, all of this fear coming up for our second ceremony, because the first one had such depth to it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I got myself into, you know, and I thought, you know, I'm going to have to tell my parents, you know, to come and pick me up in the middle of the jungle. I might be dead on the side of this toilet here in the bathroom vortex, as we called it. And I just thought, this is it, you know, I'm not coming back from this. And so my second ceremony, coming up to drinking the medicine in my second ceremony was a whole ceremony itself, just surrendering to that experience, to that discomfort, to the fear. And such beauty came through in my second ceremony that's so different from my first ceremony. And I connected very deeply with the main tree, the Amazonian tree that I connected with, which I found out later was Lupuna Blanca. And this tree reminded me that I have a strong core. It reminded me that I am strong. And that tree allowed me to see that I could do this, that I could come through these ceremonies and I can come back to my life. and I can learn from all of that I experienced. And in that second ceremony, I also encountered family members that had passed. So my mother is from Maui, and my father is from Minnesota and Missouri. So he moved here to Maui, I guess in his 30s. He's been here about 40 plus years now. And I always felt, you know, oh my gosh, there's all of this trauma from my mother. I got to deal with this stuff, you know, so much density in this, in the Native Hawaiian culture, in the trauma of the Native Hawaiians, the trauma of the Filipinos, all of this stuff. I said, oh my gosh, there's so much density here. I got to work on this stuff. And I felt a lot of it, you know, as I started to dive more into my own healing, I felt a lot of that. What I didn't realize is that there was so much trauma in my father's lineage as well. You know, in Hawaii, we're taught, there's sad things that are taught here in Hawaii as a child. You're taught that we are to hate the people that came here, that invaded our people here, that they're almost like not people. But what I realized is that, you know, my father is Caucasian. He is from Minnesota. He wears plaid shirts. He is as white as they come. I mean, he's 6'4". My mother is 5 feet tall and dark as can be. It's just so interesting to see the dynamic between them. But what is shared is that we are all people. No matter if you're a colonizer or if you're the colonized, we're all people. And I learned in my ceremony that my father holds a lot of trauma. And both of his parents passed when he was a young boy. And he's always been this solid foundation to me, the rock for me. While my mother bounces off the walls, he was always very steady. So what I learned in my ceremony, in the second ceremony, was that he is deeply wounded. He's deeply wounded. And what happened is he completely cut off his side of the family. He decided to not look there anymore. He never connected with any family. He never did any of that. So in ceremony, this tall Caucasian man comes to me, and he has this big horned owl on his forehead, right here on his third eye. And the beak comes down right through his nose here, and the horns are just really big. And he comes to me and he tells me that he's my grandfather. And my grandmother is actually right behind him. And she kind of peeks out at me. She's a little bit shyer than he is. And I tell him, how do I help my father? And he says, the only way to help him is by healing yourself. So as I take these teachings and integrate it into my life, I learned that there's a lot of spiritual ancestral power from my father's side that I am reconnecting with, that I'm resurrecting this branch of my tree that's been cut off. So as I dive into my own shamanic practices and my own journeying, I realize that this is my duty, my thing. It has nothing to do with him. He can live his life the way he's living it, and it's okay. And I really came to the understanding that, you know, with the density and the trauma that my parents encountered, they did the very best, and they do the very best they can. That was really big teaching in those ceremonies for me, because I put so much blame onto them. I thought that it was about me, but it had nothing to do with me. So as I explore my father's lineage, I get this vision of going to Minnesota. And I had this vision of being in ceremony with my father and my auntie. That's his sister. And as the vision progresses, it is actually just me there. So I have this vision of going to Minnesota. I have this vision of making a drum and making that drum in honor of my father's lineage. And what's really interesting is that, you know, the person that I thought, you know, he's always been a stoic, steady figure in my life, but he carries a lot. He carries a lot on his shoulders, and I can see it in him as well, the way that he walks. But the beautiful thing is that he is one of the only people that would be able to hold space with my mother who is erratic and, you know, just loves to, well, doesn't love to, but mills in her pain and her trauma, keeps churning it. And the divine design of their marriage, the depth of respect for marriage that my father has, that he's devoted his life to her, no matter what she puts him through. And I think that his trauma from his childhood set him up to be a witness to this and be able to still exist and to still survive. And that not many people would be able to hold the space with my mother. And I also know that if it wasn't for him, she could be homeless on the streets. So I really just honor this plant medicine for what it's done for me and what it's shown me. And that was just my first retreat. And I haven't really been called to work with ayahuasca in the last few years. And I really started to explore my own relationship with psilocybin. Psilocybin has been, it takes me to the same place. It takes me to the same place as ayahuasca, and there's no difference to me. There's a difference in the spirits, but for me right now, I've cultivated a relationship with the niños, with the little saints. And what's really interesting is that for me, I feel a tremendous vision and responsibility, what we call it in Hawaii here, kuleana. Your kuleana, it's a little bit deeper than responsibility. But I have this kuleana to continue to help the Native Hawaiians release their trauma and get past the anger and get past the rage. And like Bob was saying, harnessing that energy, being able to bring it back around and utilize it as our power. That's a really huge, huge role for me. And as it unfolds, I learn more and more, and every tiny little piece that I peel, I learn more and more. And sharing the medicine, sharing space has been the main thing for me the last year now. Sharing space, holding sacred space. Because I like I can't remember exactly how he says his name. Oriya. Yeah. He talked about the surface stuff, you know, and I'm pretty done with the surface stuff. But I know it takes a lot of courage to dive to the depths. So I feel like I have this role of kind of bridging a gap there and showing people that it is doable. You can get to those depths and be held. So I have been cultivating some future events. I've been really pulled to start to work on holding workshops. I hold space that started off as cacao ceremonies. And they have evolved from cacao ceremonies to cacao and shamanic journeying, drumming journey. It's gaining momentum into a more in-depth day workshop, into a few days. I want to be able to hold this space on the different islands. And I also want to support my Native Hawaiian brother in working with men in the same way. There's a lot to be dealt with here with the men and with the sacred divine masculine as well. So I just want to serve and be able to hold space and people, and you know, show people that they are the medicine, because that's what it comes down to. You know, when we meet these people that are in our lives that reflect to us and we say, oh my gosh, this person just emanates this presence to me. This is you. What you're seeing in them is you. So I want to continue to open that space and give the opportunity to people to see that within themselves, to see their own medicine. And I thank you all for listening to my story and for seeing me and witnessing me in my process and allowing me to share. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. This has been season 4, episode 8 of Ouroboros Story Hour, True Tales of Healing in Altered States. I'm your host, Bob Cohen. I'd like to thank tonight's speakers, Margot Mundell from South Africa, Oriya from Israel, Drew Tegler from Florida, and Anela Bird from Hawaii. This has been, you know, I've been making this joke lots lately, but this it's like The Bachelor. Like, this has been the most amazing stories, the most amazing night ever. I feel blessed and full of gratitude for what I talked about before, the exquisite vulnerability that everyone in this storytelling spaces exhibited. But also, and this is what's really cool, also, even in the chats on the live stream, this is the first night where people opened up, even in the chats, and kind of like, just so you know, guys, like, you really resonated with the people who were watching. And that's kind of like a hard thing to do in this disembodied weird Zoom thing that we're doing right now. So yeah, so what else do I need to say? Oh yeah, so we're committed to delivering Ouroboros Story Hour content free of charge, but we need your financial support to sustain the effort. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, become a patron at patreon.com/storyhour. Donate $1 to $10 in lieu of a ticket to Venmo at Bob J. Cohen, or paypal.me/Bob J. Cohen. Sponsor an episode. That'd be way cool. That'd be a first. If tonight's speakers have inspired you to share your own story, we interview prospective speakers on a rolling basis. Contact me on Instagram and Facebook at Story Hour, or by email at ouroborsstoryhour@gmail.com. Here we go. Season 4, episode 9 will air on Thursday, May 20th. So see you then. Thanks for joining us and have a great night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anela, thank you so much. As you were talking, I wrote down in my notes exquisite vulnerability, and I've seen everyone has manifested that in their own way tonight, and it just has been brilliant to receive that vulnerability. So I thank you very much. I have gratitude for the story that you shared. A lot of things really resonated, and what was kind of cool is you pulled a lot of stuff together over the course of the whole night. See, the universe is really great at curating these things. I knew that somehow or another, I knew you were the right person to sort of like pull it. You were going to pull it all together. I just knew it. So let me take a quick look at my notes here. Yeah, exquisite vulnerability. That was a note I really wanted to hit. The other one that resonated with me a lot was this idea of connecting with other branches of the family. I jokingly said earlier today that in my work there was a point where I thought I wanted to connect with my ancestors. Like a lot of people who immigrated from Europe, like my people who were poor, they came here and they left everything behind, and they were hell bent. Their mission was to assimilate, and whatever came before, it didn't matter, didn't count, had no bearing on. They were in America, and they were new people, and we were kind of like starting at ground zero. And I was feeling this like real hole in my story, right? Like, what do you know? Because a lot of people, like my wife, her actually both branches of her family, but her father's family's been in America since the 1600s, and they've done the lineage. Like she knows all the stories, and like I didn't. So I went and talked to. I go, I'm going to raise the dead of my next ceremony, right? Let's have them. Let's come on in. And so, like when I journey, I kind of have like this light that kind of like exists around me. It's almost like a camp, like as far as the campfire would go, but there's no like actual campfire in it. But I can feel spirits and things outside of that, that lit area. So I know they're there, and I'm going, hey, please come, right? Like, please. And they literally told me, fuck off. They said, because you want to blame us for all your problems. And so you need to work on yourself first, right? Like this is another one of those themes that's drawn through like the whole night. It's like, to fix your past, you have to fix your present, right? What's that? I think I know this as a Native American thing, but I think that it's probably other cultures. But when you fix yourself, you fix seven generations back and 7 generations forward, right? And it was so hard to hear. It was really hard to be told no. And I felt like how wonderful it was that you were blessed with that connection. It was just that's just my heart like skipped a beat when I heard you talk about that. So thanks a lot. The other one that I think came up was the idea of like the courage to dive to the depths. So Oriya talked about how we're in love with the struggle, and sort of like it's hard to get to the third act because because we don't really want to confront what he called like our big lie, like I'm not good enough, I'm not, I don't have enough money, I'm too fat, I'm too, I'm bald, I'm old, like whatever the lie is, like, and that's such a hard thing to do. And it's brilliant that I see that you're doing it, and sort of in that service context, right? Like where you want to help the people where you are. So you're fixing yourself and you're offering other people the ability to discover that they're the medicine, to tap into the energy that lies under the rage, to make things better.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's very easy to stew in those stories, It's very easy to just stir that pot and keep stirring it, but what if you dump that pot out, and what if you put some new stuff in it? It's like, hey, I've been cultivating this story for decades. This is something that is a part of me. That's a really hard thing to let go of.
Yeah. So thank you for showing us a way to do that. I don't know. I always come to the end of these nights, speechless, and this is coming from a guy who could talk your ear off, or as my mom would say, I could drive a saint to drink, but from talking a lot. Let me wrap this up, and then we can say our goodbyes, sort of like off the live thing. So let me see here. Let me get my notes. So